And if you can do me a favour and just type yes down in the question screen to confirm that you can see both the screen and that you can hear me. We'll pause for a minute, or well, actually we'll pause for 30 more seconds while you do that, and we'll get into it properly then. Just while we're going through the admin processes, I'll also get you to make sure your phone is turned off and other web pages are all closed down to avoid distractions during the webinar, like Facebook. That way you can get a maximum out of the webinar. If you hold your questions until the end, that way they can all come through consolidated and I can take my time to answer them fully. And besides, I might answer your questions as part of the webinar. Awesome, thanks Todd and Ness for confirming that. So, who am I? I've been a professional coach since 2000. I specialise in coaching recreational and beginner athletes, and I've coached plenty of people to finish half Ironmans and achieve their first and subsequent Ironman or challenge events, as well as many personal bests over the half and the full Ironman distance, and a few Kona qualifiers thrown in there for good measure as well. Now, I don't just coach anyone. I have a small group of about 20 people that I coach as part of my personalised coaching programs, and I make sure they're a really good fit for Qwik Kiwi. I like to make sure that they're success-driven and that they'll get that success. I also have a service called CoachRayTraining.com, and that provides training programs where you follow along at your own pace, and it's not so much the coaching that people get through the Qwik Kiwi service. As an athlete, I've done Ironman a few times, as well as Challenge Wanaka. I did my very first half Ironman in Napier in 1995 while still a junior, which probably isn't the best recommendation for junior athletes to be racing over that distance. I'd probably say I had a spectacular fail, both nutritionally and my ability to run off the bike as a result of that nutrition. And I've learnt plenty since then. And although it was another 4.5 years before I did my next half Ironman, which was the very first Taupo half Ironman, where I finished in the top 10 open men, and I've been doing them pretty much consistently the last 18 years since then. So yeah, that's me and my lovely partner there on a run we did actually this time last year, I think it was, up at Nelson Lakes, and that's me and my daughter out in the hills. And that's me competing in the Wellington Half Ironman a couple of years ago now. But that's arguably the toughest Half Ironman I've done, even compared to the Rotorua Half, which I'm preparing for next year. That will be the 20th anniversary since I did the Taupo Half Ironman, and of course the Taupo Half Ironman moved to Rotorua after about 5 years, I think it was, and then was replaced by another event on about the same time of year in Taupo. Before we get into the guts of the webinar, just want to talk about one of my clients, Di Chesmar. She's an amazing athlete. She's been with me for over 10 years now, and that's her at Iron Mouldy in 2012, where she won her age group. She has won her age group there a couple of times, and she's made some massive improvements over the years. She started off coming to see me for coaching when she just wanted to do a women's only triathlon, and we've built her up, and she's done Ironman a few times, Challenge Wanaka. She's qualified and raced at Challenge Roth as well, and done some pretty amazing things in endurance sport, not just triathlon, but also extremely long distance cycling, indoor rowing, running events as well. So she's covered the spectrum. Anyway, we'll move on and look at what we're covering tonight. We're going to talk about how to set some goals, what are the 7 secrets to success, developing a support plan, and how do you train for a half Ironman, basically, and what training sessions should you be doing, and at what stage of the season should you be doing them. So, goal setting. Goal setting needs to be, you need to be smart about your goals. They need to be specific. You need to be able to measure them. They also need to be achievable. There's no point sitting down saying, I want to run a 2-hour marathon, which would set you the world record. Because for the average person, that is not realistic and not achievable. It also needs to be a relevant goal. It needs to mean something to you, as well as being time bound. Now, an event goal like doing the Harbour to Hills, you've got your event date, and that's locked in stone, and so you're building up, and that's providing the time boundary on your training program effectively. Does someone want to share what their goal is around doing the Harbour to Hills? If so, we can delve into that just a little bit more and either confirm it's a SMART goal or modify it slightly so that we can turn it into a SMART goal. If someone does have a goal they're prepared to share, if you can type it into the question box, that would be really great. So Todd, you're keen to improve your time on last year. So that's awesome. I don't know what time you did last year, but if you could share that with me, then we can talk through that. So 7 hours and 5 minutes. We don't need to be too precise for this example. So your memory doesn't need to be fully precise there, Todd. So we can talk about how we can break down that 7 hours. And we can become quite specific with it. We can say 60 minutes for the swim. Let's check my maths on this. 4 hours. Let's go 3.5 hours for the bike, and then 2.5 hours for the run. Now, I don't know where your strengths and your weaknesses lie. For those sort of times, it'll imply that you're a lot stronger runner than you are the other two disciplines. But for argument's sake, we can use those. So we can make them specific. Swim the 2 kilometres in under 60 minutes, cycle the 90 kilometres in under the 3 hours 30, and then run the half marathon in under 2 hours 30. Will give you a time of 7 hours, which will mean you've gone that 5 minutes faster. We can measure it because we're using a stopwatch on event day to measure that capability. Achievable, we're moving 5 minutes, which is a small percentage of improvement, and if we could even try and target a lot faster than that if we really wanted to. It's relevant and achievable, and like I said before, it's time bound because with the event day on the 8th of April, I think it is off the top of my head, yeah, Sunday the 8th of April, we've got basically 20.5 weeks to prepare for it and build up to it. So in terms of the 7 secrets to success that I utilise with my athletes, consistency of your training is the number one secret to success. Basically, your training needs to be done consistently. If you consistently miss your training sessions, you will not make any progress to your success. Your body adapts to the stress of the training, and we'll come back to that a little bit later on. The training stress improves your fitness, and with your fitness enhanced, you'll be able to handle bigger training stresses, longer or more intense training. If you consistently complete your training sessions, you can progress your training sessions, making them longer and more harder, and they won't be so tiring or leave you as fatigued as when you first started training. Try and do some form of training each and every day, without exception, whether it is swimming, cycling, running, or something less strenuous such as stretching, which is still enhancing your body, preparing for the event. So consistency truly is the key. Specificity is the next secret to success, and your training needs to be specific. You need to focus on what the event involves. If you're training for a karate competition, you need to spend time in the dojo. The same applies for a half Ironman. You need to be swimming, cycling, and running, and that's where your focus needs to be. Other activities that enhance your performance, such as stretching, are also required. As I mentioned previously, our bodies adapt to the stresses applied to them. Your arm muscles get used to the swimming action and get better at it. Your cycling muscles get used to turning the pedals over on the bike, making them stronger. And your running muscles get better at propelling you across the ground as you run. But they only get better at doing this if you consistently practice doing it. Now, the next secret to success is recovery. and your body adapts to the training stress that's applied to it. However, the secret to this is that it doesn't do it immediately. The training actually damages muscles and breaks them down. Your body actually adapts to the training whilst you are recovering. Whilst you're not training is when the body adapts and makes itself stronger. Without this recovery time, your body cannot make improvements. A number of things come to enhancing your recovery. Nutrition, and I'll cover that shortly, and hydration certainly help. So does stretching, as it also helps prevent injuries. The quality of sleep is the next secret to success, and whilst you're sleeping is when most of the enhancements occur, making you better as a result of the training you complete. Ensuring you get a good 8 hours sleep each night will ensure you get the most out of your training. There's an old wives' tale that says an hour before midnight is worth 2 after, and this is very true. The earlier you get to sleep, the better the quality of that sleep is. It also means that you're more likely to get a full 8 hours of sleep in bed by 9 p.m, sleep by 9:30, means you can get up at 5:30 having had a full 8 hours, or it means you can get a full 9 hours through to 6:30 every day. How's that for a quality night of sleep? Now the next secret is to hire a coach. And getting expert advice from a professional who's qualified and has a wealth of experience to draw on is a great way to ensure your personal success. Professionals know what they're talking about and can assist you with a range of things to do with your exercise plan. Well-meaning friends and colleagues don't always know what they're talking about just because they read something on the internet or once talked to someone who did a triathlon. A qualified coach can plan and prepare a program that is specific to helping you achieve your goals. And I said before I'd come back to nutrition, and as the old adage says, you are what you eat. Nutrition is essential for ensuring that you have fuel for your body for exercise and also replenish and repair your body after the exercise. Eating good quality nutritious food will help you prepare and succeed with your training, and then again at the end of the event. Hand in hand with nutrition goes hydration. Your cells within your body contain a high proportion of water. If they get dehydrated, they can't function properly. Make sure you drink at least 2 litres of water per day, and even more if you're on a big training day on a hot environment. And I just noticed you've managed to join us, Tom, so I trust you can hear and see everything okay. So those are the 7 secrets to success. Now before we move on to the next section, which is a support plan, I just want to tell you about one of my other athletes, Joe, and this is a quote from him from a year and a bit ago now actually, but he says, "Ray has taught me how to train smarter rather than harder. I'd heard this throwaway phrase before, but now I know what it means and have proven it works. His knowledge and ability to share the reasons behind the workouts makes it so much easier to put your trust in him and allows him to get the best out of you." Thanks, Ray. So the support plan, I base it around the 6 Ps. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. You need to set a plan or get assistance setting that plan, and get the support for that plan from your spouse and significant other, your coach, and various Facebook groups can also provide support as well. And my athletes, we've all got a small private Facebook group, and Ness is part of that group, and there's a lot of support for each other amongst that group. But you're not going to be successful in a half Ironman if you're not having the support or don't have the support from your spouse or significant other. They are really essential for that. Otherwise, they're going to resent you being away training. They're going to resent the money and time you put into your sport and the event. Coach can be a real great benefit, as I touched on before, in terms of planning that training for you and making sure you're doing the right things at the appropriate moment. So next up, we're going to move into what training sessions you should be doing. And before we move into that section, there's another one of my clients. I'll just jump one too far. So it's John Humphries. He's done a number of half Ironman events including and full Ironman events, including last year he did Iron Mouldy in Napier, then the Taupo Half Iron, or Taupo 70.3, and then the Rotorua Half Ironman, all in 3 weeks. And a couple of weeks later, well, a couple of weeks, a month and a bit later, he did Challenge Wanaka, and then Ironman in the same fortnight as Challenge Wanaka. And that was all part of his 3 + 2 + 1 = charity drive that he was doing. So the 3 half Ironmans over 3 weekends, the 2 full distance events in a fortnight, and then Ultraman over in Australia, which was the second time he did Ultraman. So he's a tough old bugger, John, but he gets out there and does a fair bit of training. So what training should you be doing? You need to be doing specific swim, bike and run sessions. You need to look at sessions to build your general fitness and build your capability progressively. Don't try and go from being a couch potato to doing a full half Ironman too quickly. You'll burn out, get injured, you'll overdo things. The better way to do it is to do a little bit more and a little bit more frequently than what you have been doing, so you're building up and getting more consistent with your training. The more you improve your swimming, biking and running, the more efficient and more effective you'll be on the day. Focus on those sessions primarily, the swim, bike and run. Steady state sessions mainly as you build up your base fitness and your aerobic ability. One of the keys to a great training program is the inclusion of a rest day. It's very important for physical and a mental break from training, and you can still do non-physical training. And by that I mean stretching and yoga and other activities that are going to enhance your performance and help you recover from the training that you've done. It will also help with preventing injury. Okay, so we'll talk about the different structure to the overall training program. But before we jump into that, this is Lisa, another one of my athletes over the years. And this is what she wrote, having done her first event down in Wanaka. Just want to say thanks. It wasn't until I progressed through the race and experienced all the highs and lows that your advice really kicked in. Before the race, I didn't know I could do it physically, and that was my worry. From the training program, though, I was very well prepared. The biggest challenge, though, was that I didn't really appreciate until you are in the situation, is the mental one. Your coaching gave me down-to-earth, pragmatic advice. Rain is, after all, liquid sunshine, and for all those doubts and fears I had, at some point during my training program, I had experienced them to such an extent that I was no longer scared of them. Throughout the program, you gave me advice that built my confidence and resolve to get to the finish line. You coached me to finish knowing that training is just a small part of my life. I have a whole life with kids and work, etc. to manage. Your coaching is not just a physical program, but a program that considers the whole person and their circumstances. I ended up having an inner confidence to conquer stuff. In the end, the whole race and lead up to it was the culmination of physical and mental endurance, determination, and calm. Thanks. Okay, so a periodised plan leading up for the Harbour to Hills is breaking it into 4 phases, the first of which is the foundation injury prevention phase, then moving into the early quality phase, then the transition quality phase. I don't know why I've got EQ there, it should be TQ phase, and then the final quality phase. And basically the FI, or the foundation injury prevention phase, prepares the body for the training that will follow. And in a 20-week program, I'd give an athlete 4 weeks of that, basically preparing the body for the final 16 weeks of the program. So that's from now basically through until the 17th of December. We then move into the early quality phase where we introduce some higher intensity training, and I'll block that into a 6-week block in a 20-week program. And then the transition quality phase, and that's another 6 weeks long, and that's where the training becomes more specific, targeting the intensities of that you'll be competing whilst doing the event. And then the final 4 weeks are the final quality phase, and that's the final preparation for the event. And that kicks off on the 12th of March through to the event day. Now let's have a look at what sort of training makes up the various aspects of the blocks of training. So the foundation injury prevention phase is swimming wise, a lot of technique development, lots of drills and building aerobic base. On the bike, you'd start building the duration of the training, getting the aerobic base built, and for the run, same as with the bike, and the run does mirror the bike the whole way through, building the duration and building that aerobic base. A half Ironman event is very aerobically dominated, so we want to make our aerobic engine as efficient as possible. The heart and lungs are the core to this, and the ability for them to basically draw the oxygen out of the atmosphere, push it into the bloodstream, and then pump that around the body so that the muscles can utilize it effectively and get the most out of that, meaning that you can move as quickly as possible with minimal energy cost as you can. So the whole program will be building your aerobic base, but there'll be a few key aspects to it as we work through the different phases. So if we look at the early quality phase, swimming is further technique development. We'll continue that aerobic base building, and we'll include some intervals at threshold pace with very minimal rest. So we're working at a little bit higher pace and having not much rest to bring that on a bit more. Cycling will continue building the duration of the sessions. We'll continue the aerobic base building and building up that good strong heart and lungs, but we'll also introduce hill reps in to develop strength. And the same with running. Continue to build that duration, continue to build that aerobic base, and have the introduction of hill reps at this phase of the program. So the first 4 weeks, we're building in, getting the body prepared, and then we start hitting it with some higher intensity work in all 3 disciplines. After we've completed 6 weeks of that, we move into the transition quality phase, and this is really a link between the early quality and the final quality, but we're starting to get a lot more specific here. But with a half Ironman, the bulk of that is going to be based around getting a good strong aerobic base. Swimming wise, we have longer intervals, so we're stretching out those threshold intervals, making them a bit longer so you can maintain that speed further. Biking will continue to build that duration, getting that aerobic base really fully developed, but we'll also include some threshold work and possibly look at including some VO2 max work depending on your capability. And same with running. And it might be, depending on where your strengths and weaknesses are, we include some VO2 work for one of the 2 disciplines, but not for the other. Just turned my page the wrong way. I was about to tell you that it moves on from transition quality to early quality, but we're moving into final quality. And this is where we're starting to bring in the specific work to continue the development of the 3 previous phases. Swimming, we're moving to shorter intervals and we're building in a lot more speed and a bit more rest involved between those repetitions as well. But as I've sort of touched on a few times, a half Ironman, really aerobically dominant event, so we need to keep building that aerobic base through the entire program. And we also continue with the technique. Never stop doing technique work for swimming. I pretty much always include drills of some description into all sessions, although not all sessions are going to have a large amount of drills. It might just be a top-up, a refresher on some drills. In the bike, we'll have the threshold intensity sessions, maybe some VO2 max work, and specific intensity into sessions. We'll do a lot of race pace sessions, particularly the longer bike rides. And also the longer runs will incorporate some threshold intensity work in as well, depending on your ability. But also continue the threshold sessions and maybe some VO2 max work. Other sessions that you probably look at including in your overall week would be brick sessions to build in duration. And it's really the key sessions to get used to running after cycling. As well as maybe some strength sessions. And they're very supplementary in nature, and I'd only worry about doing them if you had time based around the other training that you do. The priority needs to be with swim, bike and run, but the advantage of strength sessions is that they can be very beneficial to prevent injury, particularly in older athletes. Alrighty, another one of my athletes, Cindy. She's done a fair bit with me, and as a first timer, this is a quote from her. directly. As a first timer and relatively new to the sport of triathlon, Ray and Andrea was was another coach that worked alongside me as part of the Qwik Kiwi network. Ray and Andrea provided me with the expertise, advice and training plan to get me not only to the start line, but also to the finish line of my first half Ironman. Their input was invaluable, and I would highly recommend all those first timers consider seriously using the services of Qwik Kiwi. So the action steps to put together a successful program are to set some goals. Work out what you want out of your program. Next up is to develop a plan. Whether you get that plan from an online training program provider such as coachraytraining.com or one of the numerous free ones that are out there on the internet, or getting it put together personalized for yourself by a coach. It doesn't really matter, but develop that plan. Without the plan, you're not going to get the success. Also, make sure you arrange a support network around that plan so that you can make the improvements and have the time committed to it without causing stress in and around your life. So that is all I was going to be covering in the webinar. We'll now open it up to questions and we'll go through and answer the questions. But before we get into that, so if you've got some questions, feel free to type them into the question box and I'll work through them and answer them. But first of all, blatant self-promo. For those of you as part of the webinar, if you want to touch base, email me tonight if you're interested in a free consultation for my personalised coaching services. We can arrange a time and I'll do that for free. And if you go to coachraytraining.com and are wanting to sign up for a training program, when you sign up, you get access to all my training programs, not just one for half Ironman. So it might be you sign up, load up the half Ironman one, and then you might look at doing a marathon over winter or something, and you can just load up the marathon one next. If you use a webinar as a discount code, you'll get 15% off, and that's valid for the next 48 hours. And I normally charge $11 a week for that service. So if any of you have questions, type them into the question box and I'll answer them in the order they come in. But the other thing as well, my website, coachray.nz, I have lots of free workouts, lots of free training advice up on there, and also posting regularly on Facebook at coachray/QuickKiwi and Twitter at coachraynz, Instagram at coach_ray_nz, and you can also find me on Strava if you use Strava. If you search for Coach Ray, I should come up, but my full name as it is on Strava is www.coachray.nz, and then the wee smiley face. So that's all I've got for the webinar. Feel free to hit me up with questions and I'll go through them all now. There's no questions coming in, so I'll stay online and answer any questions you do have for the next few minutes. But if there's no questions, I'll wrap things up. But like I said, I'm happy to stay online for the next few minutes and answer any questions that you might have. I hope the question box is working. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, Ness, your training with your Garmin isn't syncing with your training tilt. I'll touch base with you outside of the webinar and give you a hand with that. I do have a YouTube video on my YouTube channel, so feel free to search for that. Just search for something along the lines of Garmin Training Tilt Coach Ray. It should come up there, so I can look after you with that regard. Hey, no worries, Todd. Thanks for your feedback there. I do try and keep it relatively light, but also informative. Happy to answer any questions you may have. No worries, Ness. Not a problem at all. Thanks, Ray, for the webinar, signing up. Like I said, I'll touch base with you. I'll drop you an email or Facebook message a little bit later on with a link through on how to get your Garmin connecting with your Training Tilt account. No worries, Ness, anytime. Tom, do you have any questions at all that you'd like answered while I'm on the line? Todd, happy to answer them for you as well. No worries, Tom. I hope you got some value out of the webinar. I realise you did come in a little bit late after I'd started. There will be a recording of it loaded up. I'll send an email out later on so you can catch what you missed at the start. But yeah, all the best with your training and racing. No worries, Tom. Anytime.